Well, hey, friends, and welcome back to the dinner table. I am, as always, so happy to be here with you guys. And I'm also happy to have my friend Juan Aldape with us tonight. Hello, Juan.
What's up, everybody? Hey,
I'm so glad you're here.
happy to see you.
We were just having a conversation, which for some odd reason I'd never heard your last name before. And so you said Aldape, and I said, okay. Oh, wait, that's not a Corpus Christi name. That's not a name I hear everywhere. So it's a little bit of a rare name. And yeah, where are you from? What's your
Yeah,
tell
born
me?
and raised here, but yeah, it's I've only ever met maybe like one other person that had that last name here in town. My dad is from uh, Martinez de la Torre, Veracruz.
Uh-huh.
That's where his family's from.
Uh-huh.
From what he's told me, the Aldapes are. You can find more, I think, in the valley, like Brownsville area. I know that's
Mm-hmm.
where my grandfather lived. But other than that, it's I want to say it's a Spanish. Um,
Well, it's not like last week we had Longoria, which is like, there's
yep.
a lot of Longorias in Corpus Christi.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of Gutierrez's in
Hmm.
Corpus Christi. There's a lot of Garcias in Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
But Aldape is not one I hear a lot of.
Mm.
So nice. That's good. Well, welcome. I'm so glad you came to have dinner with me tonight. I'm
Yeah.
glad
It
you're
was. It
here.
was. I loved it. I loved it. I'm stuffed.
Juan and I met at Bellino's. Bellino's, of course, you guys know we talk about their food very regularly on the podcast, and they're also they buy some of my vegetables from here on the farm. And the best part about it was that we always got into really interesting conversations, which is why I thought it would be a lot of fun to have you here on the dinner table because I mean, really, that's the point of the whole podcast. When I go out to try to find people, it's just like, well, like, who have I had interesting conversations with in the past? And we could have some interesting conversations. And I thought, yeah, you know what? Juan, come on, come have dinner. Let's talk interesting. And something interesting that happened right away this week on the farm was we got another pig. And strangely, you actually are connected to the people that I got the pig
In
from.
some odd way, right? Yeah.
It's very strange. I don't even think it's strange anymore. And you and I, this is part of our interesting conversations, but I don't think it's even strange anymore when I see all of these different kinds of synchronicities. I'm like, there's got to be
Right. That's the
something
word.
here,
Yeah.
right?
Synchronicities. I love it.
Yeah. So this little potbelly pig, I get a call from, or I get a text from Caitlin Shook. And I don't really know her very well, but I'm kind of like connected to kind of everybody in this like little like mushroom feeler way. I just kind of
Yeah.
like make my connections. And she knew enough about the farm to ask me. She said, I've got this pig. She needs a home. And I was wondering whether you could use a pig on your farm. And I was like, okay, wait, hold on. I got to know more about this story. Why do you have a pig? How did this happen? Are you one of those people that like collects a pig that shouldn't collect a pig? And she was like, no. Basically, I guess she became like a foster for a couple of weeks,
Right.
and
For all
she
kinds of pets. Animals.
apparently
Yeah.
it sounded like that.
Hmm.
So I see. I'm not like that. Like, I'm very particular about I take stray animals, but I'm like, I don't rescue animals. I don't go after, fostering or, anything like that. I could have every kind of animal, farm animal times 4 already just from the couple of years that I've been here. And of course, the years before that my parents were here, because so many people collect animals they shouldn't collect. And then they have to figure out what to do with them, especially when it comes to farm animals, you know, donkeys and pigs and chickens. And I actually have half of the chickens I have are something that somebody gave me because they had chickens they were moving and they weren't allowed, whatever. The ducks that we have, they flew over from another farm and then
Yeah.
we collected one of those. The steers, they weren't collected, but one of the pigs and now the second pig. So we have 3 total pigs out here now. And so she brought this pig over after having collected it from somebody that needed to get rid of it and basically saying, I'll find a home for this little girl. And it worked out. I mean, it was like she did it. Clearly she knows what she's doing when it comes to saving animals, because she took care of everything and just showed up with the animal. And that's what I'm saying about, like, I'm not going to go out of I'm not chasing animals down and collecting animals and dealing. That's not what I'm doing. But if an animal shows up that needs the space that I have, so this was
Right.
perfect.
Yeah.
So apparently the guy had got this pig. She's about a year old, or she's a little over a year old. And then when he originally, I guess, had her inside, which is not unusual for potbellies. Like people have their potbelly while they're small, and then all of a sudden they start getting big, and then they decide to put them outside. And then apparently he had enough land to but then he couldn't stay on that land. The whole story. It's like whatever. Now I've got a pig that I don't know what to do with.
Hmm.
And so she contacted me and brought her out on Tuesday, I guess. And she told me, I said, okay, what's her name? And she said, well, the guy called her Piglet, but she's no Piglet. And I was like, okay. So she gets here, and we already know that she doesn't really have like a solid name or anything like that. And so we started calling her Figgy,
Love
like
it.
Figgy, the piggy fig. So it's fig season. Everybody knows that we're all up in figs. Which actually, this is the first time tonight that I haven't made a salad with figs in it, but I had tomatoes in it, and it had heirloom
Hmm.
tomatoes in it. So there was that. And she looks like a fig. She was sunburned. Like, it was really sad that she was actually peeling. The skin on the back of her was actually so you could tell that Caitlin had really taken care of her since she'd collected her, but you could tell that she was not having the best life before. She was really fat, or she's really fat. She's not a huge pig, but she's just got this massive jowl and this huge, massive pot belly. Like, our pigs are pasture pits, so they're like out there foraging, and not to say that they don't get fed, because my dad feeds them every afternoon at about 4 o'clock. But she's now the dog is playing. He's decided, hey, lay down. Lay down. Good boy. Okay. That's what happens when I don't let him in like earlier in the evening. And now he's like, but I've been outside all day, Mom. Well, let me play. So she brought her in. She immediately just came up to us. So she's friendly. She's a pet. She's clearly a pet. And then my mom walks her over to our pond. We have this amazing, huge pond. And as soon as she recognized there was water there, she literally was like a pig in heaven. She walked right into that. She was swimming. She was rooting around in the mud and just rolling over. And that's how they keep from being sunburned, is they cover
Right.
their
Yeah.
skin with mud, basically. I'm so happy for her. I'm very grateful that there are people in the world that will do the things I won't do, because if Kaylin hadn't collected her and then contacted me, you know what I mean? She
Yeah.
made that happen, because if she hadn't done it and made it really easy, because there'd been another gal that offered her pig to me, and we went and tried to get the pig, and we just built a trailer, this freaking 400-pound pig that would never get on the trailer, whatever. And it was just this nightmare. And I was like, I'll never do that again. Like, I'm never going for an animal. And then she just brought this over. So I'm happy about that. Now, they opened a place, her and her sister opened a place called the Annex downtown.
Oh yeah.
That's the bar.
That is where I work at now. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. So that was where the connection came from, which we talked a little
Small
bit
world.
about that, because they're doing the chicken shit bingo over there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a great time.
So I'm actually thinking about maybe going over there when they do it the next time, and setting up a table and having some of my stuff for sale and telling people about what's going on out here at the farm, just to kind of make that connection between, the
Sounds good.
yeah. I'm curious to see how that will turn out. And the other thing that we talked about last week was that my chickens. So when I took you out there to see my chickens, I have chickens that are eating eggs, which has become like a big deal, because I'm really not collecting. I'm collecting like 2 or 3 eggs a day, and I've got 30 chickens. And so that's become kind of a little bit of a nightmare. And so I mentioned that we would do an unanswered question for it this week. But before we get into that, digging into that unanswered question, something got brought up. Tuesday is 4th of July. So when everybody listens to this, they'll be hearing 4th of July will be coming up the next day. And I wanted to talk about fireworks, because I'm a huge fan of fireworks. Do you like fireworks?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you like to shoot fireworks off?
I do.
Yes, me too. And I'm a huge fan. We do that out here. We shoot fireworks off. As a matter of fact, my friend's memorial service was in May, and we did fireworks that day because we, thought it was good for her and we wanted that for her. But I wanted to talk about fireworks because I think that everyone that is willing to hear this needs to understand something that happened this year. And that is, we got really, really good rain in the spring, and our grass was really tall and nice. And it was a nice, cool spring. It lasted for a very long time. But then when we got to the point of June, it just went from beautiful spring to 98 to 100, 105, depending on where you're at in the
Right.
region.
Yeah.
Well, when I dehydrate my herbs and vegetables and things like that, 95 is the temperature that I dehydrate at. So if that gives you an indicator of what happened to all that really nice, thick, tall grass that's in all of the fields and in the pastures. So what we have is kindling ready to set fire all over
Hmm.
this region right now. And so I just simply wanted to do my little 2 cents and remind people that the last thing you want to celebrate on the 4th of July is a full-fledged burning down someone's land or property or houses or whatever, because we didn't think about, oh, well, we had a nice spring and there was a lot of rain. And so there's a lot of moisture. There is moisture in the soil, but the grass is all just this dehydrated, brown,
Yep.
dead grass. So please keep that in mind if that's something, I know a lot of people like to talk about the animals and how it scares animals. And I understand that that's a part of it too. So the unanswered questions I looked up, and this is a thing that we started doing back when we very first started doing the podcast, because Aislynn likes to be real flamboyant with her words and just says whatever she wants to say. And Joe would always want to make sure that I was correct and prove me right or wrong. And so I suggested the way that we handle that is that he would go and do an unanswered question and find out whether I was correct about what I was saying, or we'd call it, we don't know the answer to that question. And so we'd look it up. And so last week we were talking about if chickens are deficient whenever they and I did a little bit of research. I came across two articles, one from Best Nest Box, and then another one from let's see what the Spruce, and why chickens are eating their eggs. There was a whole lot of how do you prevent it, make sure you have a big enough nest box for them, make sure that everything's nice and clean, keep your broody hens out. But the biggest thing that I noticed was that it's possible that they're deficient in calcium. And that's one of the things we talked about last week is a lot of times when an animal's doing some weird thing, that they're eating something that they shouldn't be eating. And if you think about it, chickens eating their own eggs, there's clearly something going on. And it's interesting because they don't all do it. Some of them actually hide their eggs from the other chickens that
Yeah.
eat their eggs. And so, and a lot of, before I got out there and started doing a lot of research on it, or before I did this research on it, it was, you're going to have to kill a whole entire flock. Well, what I'm understanding is that I can seclude chickens. I can give them some more calcium. There's other things that I can do besides just killing an entire flock of chickens. And so the thing that I did this last week, I pulled my little chicken tractor out. I have a chicken tractor that we use for the babies, and then I use to, put them in the gardens and stuff like that. I pulled the chicken tractor out into my backyard, into my thick, luscious, my grass is still green, by the way, thick, luscious grass, put the coop over the top of it, pulled out two hens that I knew were definitely egg eaters, put them over there. But then when you and I went out there tonight to collect, I collected one egg from a girl that hides her eggs in a different little nesting area in the coop. But the other one, I had left an egg up in the box to see whether or not anybody would eat it, and it definitely got eaten. And so I'm going to have to just keep a closer eye on which one so that I can seclude that one. And what I may do is actually do some heavy duty feeding on the ones that are acting poorly,
Right.
and give them the calcium and really see if I can. So I've got some more work to do. But basically the unanswered question is that they're deficient in calcium, but it also could be unclean nest boxes, too crowded. And I don't foresee that. They could be bored, it said. So there's a lot of different, reasons. And then another thing they said was you can take out the flock, you can change it to, and Andrew Edelin had mentioned this to me, that he had a special kind of nesting box that rolls away basically. So there's all kinds of things you can do to it. But this is an ongoing conversation with us here, is the chickens and how to keep the chickens happy and all of that. Do you have any experience with having backyard chickens or anything like that?
Haven't had any since I was maybe like 18.
Yeah. So at home with
It's been a
with
while.
your
Yeah.
parents?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Here in Corpus Christi area or somewhere
Hmm.
else? So I have to admit that over the last 2 weeks, and particularly this last week, I have been playing like the single life dinner kind of situation. I'm clearly very single right now with how I'm handling the meals. And the first few weeks, it was, and of course, I was doing the autoimmune protocol diet and really having to be super strict about things. But this last like 2 weeks, man, I haven't even wanted to go to the grocery store, and I have hardly been cooking. I have my big meal that I do for Thursday, right? And I've got leftovers from that. And then maybe I was doing like one other meal and then having leftovers from that. But then I was still having I don't know, some kind of a wrap at lunch or whatever. And I just have found myself just being like super like, just go get one of those hamburger patties. And I buy hamburger patties from natural grocers, so they're still in alignment with my meat choices, where I'm eating meat that's not fed the grain that ultimately is the
Yeah.
part that I'm trying to avoid with the autoimmune protocol diet. But it's just a meat patty. I talked about it a few weeks ago, because basically I've been eating like squash and hamburger patties for like like 3 nights in a row. Just like heat up another hamburger patty and some more squash and onions, because that's what's coming out of the garden. Eat some tomatoes and eat a ridiculous amount of watermelon and eat, just something easy. Let me just cut up a cucumber and eat it. Let me, just super, super easy. And it honestly, it doesn't surprise me, because I kind of always imagined, and certainly between my divorce and getting into a relationship with Joe, when the kids weren't here, I didn't, I didn't eat, or I would just eat, you know, I don't know, like walnuts and some fruit. Just I didn't really care. And I think back then I used to always think it was because finally I don't have to cook for the kids or anybody else, and I'm just gonna, and now it's like get in from the gardens at like 9 o'clock, and I just don't. I mean, there's no need like for it's just me. So just
Yeah.
you know, you've got your daughter, right? And
Hmm.
so how do you? I mean, like how do you handle single life cooking and
So when I do have her, which is like half of the week, like we do like three days on, back and forth. There's
Mhm.
always that middle day. That's the half day, I guess.
Right.
But so yeah, for like the days that I have my daughter, I'm pretty much off of work
Mhm.
and just doing the whole um homemaker kind of thing. I try to cook at home.
Yeah?
Um, it's still tough.
What do you like to cook?
It just depends. I don't whatever I'm feeling really. Like
Mhm.
this week we did tacos,
Tacos are always a
we did
steady.
salad, we did sandwiches, we've done meatloaf, we've done um chili, it I whatever I'm feeling really,
Yeah, kinda
you know.
single pot kind of easy stuff though, pretty easy stuff?
Um it just depends.
I find
Depends
myself
how I'm
always doing
feeling.
single pot.
Right, right. No, so like okay, so probably more often, yes.
Mhm.
Back when I was settled down, I always loved cooking and entertaining guests.
Uh-huh, yeah.
So when that stopped happening, really, like I don't really have people over anymore. It's
Uh-huh.
very rare that I
You need a
do, and
dinner table talk podcast.
right,
Like,
yeah,
so you invite people to dinner
exactly.
once a week.
And I'm like, why do I really want to cook for myself?
Right.
I'll just,
Yeah.
I'll figure something out and snack or whatever.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
yeah. But now it's like my daughter's getting older and she's just turned 8. She's,
Uh-huh.
she's wanting all these different things now. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to cook at home or we're going to go.
What does she like to eat? Like, you mentioned that she wants to eat other things. She wanted to eat, like, takeout kinda stuff a lot, and
Oh,
you're trying to talk her out of it?
her
Yeah.
thing right now is sushi.
Oh, well, she's a smart
She
kid.
is huge on that right now. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, that and,
And you're like,
for
"Hey, babe, finances, finances."
yeah, so for at home, she loves salmon,
Uh-huh.
rice, avocado.
So you make,
Those are
like,
her
poke
go-tos.
bowls for
Yeah,
her?
yeah, it's
Where do
just
you
like
get
easy.
salmon from?
I mean, I only go to HEB right down the
Uh-huh.
street, honestly.
Yeah.
If I'm getting meat, I go to Bore.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I went over there for the very first time the other day. It's
They're
pretty
awesome.
impressive.
I
Yeah.
freaking love all of the guys there. It's
Uh-huh.
man, the stuff there is just there's nothing like it in town, honestly.
Yeah. I liked that place. I was really impressed with it.
That's what I use for, like, if I'm making, whether
Mhm.
it's burgers or barbecue or I'm doing chili or something. It's I go straight there and they get me
Yeah.
everything I need.
Okay, so but with the sushi, they sell a tuna. I mean, sorry, they sell a sushi quality salmon at HEB, so I could get that.
Oof, I don't know.
You don't know,
Not
you're just
sure.
buying
Like,
salmon.
no, 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 no. Like, we're doing salmon at home. Like, just I'll cook that in the oven or whatever,
Oh,
or I'll
okay, okay,
saute
okay.
that
So you're not
for
sushi in it. So tonight we had, speaking of the reintroduction stuff I've been talking about every week with my autoimmune protocol, we had calabazas con pollo. And that is absolutely one of my most favorite dishes, my favorite things to eat since I was a young child. All my friends' moms, if I walk in the
yeah.
house and it smells like Camino, I'm like, "What you cooking?"
Hmm.
like,
Oh yeah.
and I can particularly remember walking into kitchens when they had calabaza con pollo or fideo going, and I was just like, "Oh," or
Oh yeah.
picadillo.
You had
That
to
was the
stay,
other
and you
one.
had to stay and have some.
Yes,
Like,
I was
that's
like,
yeah.
"Hey, can I eat dinner with y'all
Yep.
tonight?" Yeah.
Hmm.
So this whole period of time where I was not eating any of the nightshades, which is the eggplant, tomato, pepper, all that, and of course, when you're talking about Mexican dishes or Latin dishes, you're going to be heavy in tomato, heavy in peppers, usually, and so that was a huge deal for me to like cut out so much of the stuff. Like I can eat tacos, but they wouldn't be like the kind of tacos I would
Right.
really, with it. Well, and that's the thing is that the camino, the cumin, all that's actually a seed. So I had to cut out that, and then I had to cut out the tomatoes and had to cut out all the peppers and all that. So to be able to add that back in. So this is the first time I've eaten this in squash season. I mean, basically, it came down to this is pretty much the last of the squash. Like I can't go on anymore without, and I've got all these tomatoes and I'm introducing tomatoes. And so it's time. So we made, and I don't even know that I like why I really needed a recipe other than to just keep on track. Is this something that you make? Like, is this a recipe you
I
would make?
haven't had this honestly since my I think the last time I had it had to be with my grandmother. And
Ooh.
yeah.
So what
Yeah.
did you think then
Oh,
compared?
oh, nope, nothing comes close to it. Maybe my mom's cooking. Maybe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe my mom's
Yeah.
cooking comes close to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, but like that's yeah. And we lost my grandmother last November,
Mhm.
actually. And it was crazy. It was right after I had a crazy end of last year.
Yeah.
I had some other things going on, had some
Mhm.
trauma, I was in a crazy accident,
Yeah,
and
I
then
wanna talk about that a little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
because
yeah,
I
we
think
will.
that
And then yeah, not long after that, a couple of weeks after that, I was thought I made my recovery, and I was like, okay, I feel like,
I
oh,
think I
hey,
remember you
I can
telling me that. Yeah.
kind of do stuff again. And then bam, and then my family's like, everybody's in town, and we're at the hospital because yeah, my mom is, well, we all call her we all called her mom. Like she
Mhm.
raised everybody in the family.
Uh-huh.
That's, I guess it's just part of our culture, right?
Yes.
The women run the house.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They're the leaders, right?
So she was your calabazas con pollo, like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And,
contributor?
and don't get me wrong. Like I mean, my mom's still there too. My mom does,
Mhm.
like, yeah. It's hard for me to like. It's hard for anybody else to like cook for me and like, oh yeah, nothing beats that. And I think that's everybody and their parents.
Of course.
You
Absolutely. That's the what is the best meal that you had when you were a kid kind of story.
Mhm.
And it's always got something to do with like the way your grandmother did something, like the way my
Yeah,
grandmother's was like chicken and dumplings, like the most basic chicken and dumplings you could possibly imagine. I wanted my grandmother's chicken and dumplings,
yeah.
that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So what did you think then about tonight's dish with
Oh, it
the
was damn good. I
yeah.
loved it, and I actually wish I would have had more wine with it
Uh-huh.
because it brought out something in the wine, like a peppery, almost not sweet, but like more savory.
I'm impressed that
Um,
you like because you're a professional bartender, but you also have some of your own like catering alcohol services, and you also alcohol services that probably didn't come out right.
Well,
Catering cocktail
I
services,
yes, yeah.
and this is like putting
I
rubbing
mean,
alcohol
basically,
on
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Open your mouth. Here you go. Here's another drink.
And
Yeah,
you set up
yeah,
some
yeah.
menus and stuff like that as well for people when they're trying to do bar menus and stuff like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you
When
have quite a
people
bit of
are putting
experience.
parties together and they
Hmm.
wanna sometimes they wanna like a signature drink menu or something, and I'll do that.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier like when you're working at a bar, or for me personally, like
Hmm.
I don't know a lot of people that do this, but the good ones in town, the cool guys, like the
Uh-huh.
Michael Greens and
Uh-huh.
the Mikey and
Yeah.
um the Jacob McLean's, they all it's a lot easier for us to ask a guest like, hey,
Hmm.
what do you normally drink? And as soon as they start talking, okay, bam, we got a sense of like
What their
we can
flavors
at
are.
least, yeah, now we know like what your tongue is like or
Uh-huh.
whatever, and
Uh-huh. Totally.
your palate, whatever.
Yeah, exactly what
I'm
I
being
like.
stupid right now,
No,
but
and this is what I like the best about, and you're right, Nate, the bartenders that you've named, and that's probably why I got to know you pretty well at Bellino's, is because I would go in and just be like, okay, this is, and I'm picky like that. Like I'm picky like that with every single meal that I eat,
mhm,
every drink that I go to. I think it might have been just a couple weeks ago when I talked about that, actually going over to the post to Michael Green and telling him, I'm not drinking right now. Can you make me a drink?
yeah,
And he totally like stirred it up, mixed it up, and that like that's how I am. I'm so spoiled like that
yeah.
that I want to find people that have that experience, but that you can even pair it like that you can pair. I know you can pair the cocktails, but you can also pair the wine with, and it's something about those
Right. I
flavors.
think for okay, so I don't know about those guys. They probably, I'm sure they've read a lot of books and had a lot of experiences, in different cities and doing
Hmm.
working at different bars and um meeting all kinds of people. For me, I think a lot of it comes from my background in serving. Yeah, and I just bring that with me. Like, like I want to make the customer happy. I want to go above and beyond. So like, hey, you tell me a little bit about what you normally have, and I'm gonna do my best to.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
He's talking about the farm wine. Of course, we drank the farm wine tonight, and we're about to harvest the 2023 grapes.
Hmm.
Probably within days, maybe early next week, we'll harvest them. And to be able to drink that wine, what was your thoughts about the wine itself, just
I
without
loved it. It
the?
was very. I think anybody could drink that right off the
Hmm.
bat, like even people that have never touched wine or aren't really into wine.
Yeah.
It's a very easy, almost like a pinot or a syrah.
Uh huh.
I couldn't like tell exactly what I was getting, but it was more on the sweeter side. But
Yes.
like I said earlier, I wish I would have had it more with the meal because
Hmm.
it brought out something about like the.
So the recipe's real simple, you guys. It's squash, and it's a zucchini, yellow squash, and then we put a tomato in there. We put a yellow onion in there. I used some olive oil, salt, garlic powder, cumin. It called for a can of whole corn. I didn't use that. And then a can of tomato sauce. So it was this really like fragrant with all the beautiful vegetables that are coming out of the garden right now, and then some chicken thighs, and it was real simple and easy to cook. A one pot meal, yeah, I mean, really, and then served it up with a wine and some delicious salad. Which tonight, of course, we've been using the arugula and the spinach and kale. I used my cucumbers. We used a pretty red onion, and then of course some of the little cherry heirloom tomatoes that are coming straight out of the
So
garden
good. Yeah.
with the red wine vinegar on top of it, served with the wine. And it was a really simple but great, delicious meal. I enjoyed it very much.
Hmm.
So clearly, one of the things that you love doing, that I love doing, and that is clearly a part of the industry that you work in, is talking to people and getting to know people and meeting people at one job and then carrying over to the next job, and those people coming from that job to that job, and just kind of building up your network. Which leads me into, I mean, ultimately, that's how you and I met, and now we're friends. And
Yeah.
it was because we met at the bar. You were serving me, and we were, getting to know each other as friends. And I'm kind of like that, anyways. And it sounds like you're kind of like that too.
Definitely. Yeah.
And we just got to talking, and we would talk. I think that probably about the time of the pandemic, we started getting, into, or like as things opened back up again with the pandemic
Right.
and we were going into restaurants and stuff like that. And I wasn't one of those, like I didn't, as soon as the moment that the rules allowed,
We're lifted. Yeah.
I wasn't one of those people that was ever afraid. Like I started going back out again. The
I was.
moment that it wasn't the moment we weren't in lockdown
Yeah.
anymore, I was going back out
Oh,
again.
yeah.
I was
Yeah.
never,
Same.
so
I was the guy that was throughout it all, like even during, like going out and getting the groceries and doing all of the things and going to other
yeah.
people's houses and taking them stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah,
Yeah. I was thinking about it too when we were talking earlier tonight, that I kind of had forgotten that the my farm to table dinners were like pretty big, and they were doing really well during, and it was that pandemic year. It was the
hmm
year that like the people that were willing to go out were looking for things to do because so
right.
many things weren't available to do.
Partying did
Yeah.
not stop.
No. Yeah.
Weddings did not stop. There were so many things that did not stop.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. In my events, like bartending, it was a great year for me. That kept me afloat, and it was crazy. Like, I mean, I loved it. I loved
Yeah.
it because I was not. I honestly wasn't for all of the shutdowns either. So
It's fascinating because last week Sarah said, we were talking about how the life coaching industry, like her business got really good during the pandemic. And she made the comment that it was actually it was strange that it was kind of a good year for, and so I think that it's strange that after a few years later, there are people that are saying, or if we're somewhat afraid to say like, well, actually it was kind of a good year for my business, like we're
yeah,
afraid to like speak the truth. Sometimes we were afraid to speak the truth back then, and then we're sometimes afraid to speak the truth about like, well, actually it was probably good for all of us to have to like,
yeah.
well, you could have you chose how you went about it. You could be like super bored playing video games, drinking yourself into
Oh,
a little
so
fat
many.
slump.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Or you could be like turning your whole life over, waking up and finding yourself talking to new friends about things you were always afraid to talk about, which I think that's really
hmm
what our initial connection was, with like things that other people might not be willing to talk about. You and I were like, no, let's talk about it,
Yeah, why
and
not?
I appreciate
I think
that.
enough time has gone by. So,
Yeah. And so then, but in even bigger than that, I think something that's been a huge connection for you and I, has been, both of us have been through some pretty traumatic body trauma in our life. And you were mentioning a little bit ago that you had an accident that happened in, was it 2022? 2000, what year was it? 2021?
yeah, so yeah, it's
Oh yeah. So last August, you are
last
not even a whole
August.
year
Yeah, it's
away from it.
almost coming up on a year now. Yeah,
So
it's crazy. It's flown by.
tell me again, remind me again what happened.
So I was in a car accident. I hit it was a head-on collision. I ran into a pillar.
Wow.
Um, Ruptured my bladder in that. Went straight to surgery. It took probably about an hour or so.
Mhm.
I was at the hospital for 2 days.
Did your car catch on fire?
Immediately.
Okay, because I think I remember hearing that either.
Immediately. Yeah, no, it was all over social media. We
Yeah,
were
yeah.
on like Corpus Christi Chronica and all that. And it
Famous
was
if you're on Corpus
oh
Christi,
my gosh, I made it. I was trending. I went viral for a little while. No, it wasn't even me. Honestly, what had happened was the picture that they captured of the car on fire.
Uh-huh.
There was an officer walking by, and
Uh-huh.
he was like doing this pose that was almost like Bad Boys 2, like the explosion in the background and looking
Oh,
all cool
nice.
with his glasses and everything. And that's what was being shared. Like you
Uh-huh.
saw like the thousands of likes and reactions on the picture.
Uh-huh.
And then if you went into the comments, it was like, "Oh man, that boy! Is that Will Smith or is that Martin Lawrence? There's a man. What's his number? I want to get arrested by this guy." It was hilarious, but I was like, I'm glad they're talking about that and not me because I'm like,
The whole time
yeah,
I was
I
like,
was like,
"What
shit,
happened to
like,
my friend Juan? Oh
yeah.
my god!" Like,
No, and it was a crazy ordeal, and I honestly, I don't know that I've even like sat down and processed it enough,
Mhm.
even to this day. I recovered in like 3.5 weeks. I think it was 12 or 14 days, I forget, after the surgery that I started getting back up and moving. And then I
Mhm.
went immediately back to work. At the time, like I was um, involved with a new business at the time. The Nueces Whiskey Library had just
Uh-huh.
opened, and we were like doing soft openings when
Mhm.
right when that happened.
Yeah.
And when I like got when I got in that accident, we were planning our opening day officially and this and that. And I missed all of that. And I came back and I was like, man, like I felt like I let everybody down. It was crazy.
Mhm.
And I rushed back. I went straight back to work
Mhm.
without any doubts. With like I just was like, doesn't matter what I'm feeling. I got to get back up on my feet and do something and move and looking back on it now, I wish I wish I would have taken
Process the trauma.
more time
Yeah.
off. I
Yeah.
screwed myself big time. The rest of that year was hell.
Yeah.
The end of that year was just, I still don't know how I made it through, but I made it through. And
Yeah.
here I am. So,
Yeah. And I think one of the things that has been really interesting about the conversations we've had is this idea that we talked about at the very beginning of the podcast is synchronicities that are happening that
mm,
happen. And I think that you and I were finding some interesting like conversations about, I don't know, maybe like being able to see the future or like maybe forecasting something that was happening. And then when you were telling me the story, see, I was in a very traumatic body accident when I was 13. And then I also, in 2013, I was in a bad car accident that ended
mm,
in a brain trauma. And so, speaking of trauma, like
right.
it's like it was trauma that brought back. So, the
Yeah.
thing is, and if anything traumatic ever happens to you again in life, which life has things, right?
hmm
It comes flashing back in a way that you don't really even know how to process it. And several weeks ago, I was explaining to a friend of mine that was here about how I've been different about trauma lately. And he was actually saying that there's a thing called post traumatic growth, which
Right.
means that you actually have come out of the trauma.
hmm
And so I think that that's a really interesting, like, you start feeling different about things when you like the idea that I go to the grocery store. I mean, there were years after the wreck where I was too empathic to even like too sensitive to even go to the grocery store. Like
hmm
everything overwhelmed me. And I can only imagine going through what you went through just recently and then just popping back into the world
Yeah.
and how it's got to affect everything, your relationship with your daughter, your relationship with your business, your personal business, your relationship with, people
I
that you talk
did
to.
not see her.
Hmm.
I did not let her see me in those weeks that I was recovering.
Were you scared for her to
Um,
see you sick or weak or what
I
were
think a lot of it was like I didn't know what she knew. I didn't know what
Mhm.
she was gonna feel,
Mhm.
and I didn't want her to feel like she had to feel a certain way, or
Mhm.
So she was the entire time she stayed with her mom, and
Do you think that you feel the need to just like put it aside, like put the trauma or the pain aside and just like get up and move on and like not, I mean, processing that pain, how like how did you how do you handle it or what do you feel like about how you like, because I think about that, how did, because I'm one of those people that will tell it all,
Mhm.
like I'm just, I'm a complete open book to a fault, oversharing they call it sometimes, that's who I am.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're kind of the opposite of that, where you just go like everything's fine, I'm fine, getting back to work, I'm doing fine, is that what happened?
What's funny is like I think and all of the people that know me well enough, or the people that were working with me at the time, they'll tell you like um, I'm I'm pretty open,
Mhm.
um, and you wouldn't even think it by looking at me. A lot of people have told me I'm pretty stoic and just
Mhm.
dry, or like just straight faced, or
Mhm.
I come off as like maybe pissed off or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
that's just my straight face, right? Resting bitch face. But no, like I'm very extroverted introvert. Is that the right?
Uh-huh.
Am
That's me.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, same.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, most of like more often than not, I am, I guess you would say, oversharing or just being completely transparent
Uh-huh.
and vulnerable or whatever. And I learned a lot of that came from after my ex and had split up.
Mhm.
After I had left and went out on my own, I immediately went to therapy and started working on myself and
Uh-huh.
trying to figure out like what ways I can be better so that I can help Ava more, my daughter, like so I
Mhm.
can be a better parent for her, better example for her.
Yeah.
Like this big thing just happened in our home
Yeah.
and we were a family
Yeah.
and now we're not.
Yeah.
Um I got to do whatever I need to ensure that she's going to be okay
Mhm.
and she's not going to have to go through as much BS that I had to when I was growing up with my parents and their
Not
whole
facing
relationship.
their
Yeah,
own
exactly.
personal stuff.
Yeah.
So after the accident, did you go back to seeing therapy? Yeah, have you done anything therapy for that trauma?
For that, no.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, so like and that's what I was getting to. Like I was normal most of the time I would,
Mhm.
since like I had split up with my ex or whatever, which was, 3.5 years ago.
Mhm.
Um I started getting more and more able to open up with others and being more of a, I guess, a conduit, or like, when people were venting and it
Yeah.
was so much easier for me after that to pour out into others too and to help others, and in turn it was helping me. I mean, obviously.
Right.
um it's almost like ministering, right? And like
Yes.
in ways you're also
Yes.
like ministering to yourself, like,
Honestly, that's what I've found, like, the hardest part for me about, like, I loved going to the bar,
yeah,
not really even so much for drinking,
yeah,
but
no, it's the
because I
camaraderie
liked
and the,
chatting with you
yes,
guys or other people at the bar, like, I love that part of it, and so that's why going over to Michael Green and being like, "Okay, this guy's gonna make me a cocktail, a
right,
mocktail, a real
yeah,
deal,"
no, yeah,
and
for
it's
sure.
because but I also have got this fear going on inside my life right now where it's like, I don't wanna be the single woman at the bar. So now, like,
Hmm.
so now I'm just like, which is weird because I never had any problem actually going to the bar alone and just sitting there and chilling. If I go on a vacation, a lot of times I'm on my own on a vacation. I don't have any problem sitting there talking to people. And that's how, we get into these interesting conversations.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think that there is an opportunity there I mean, I think, gosh, several of my friends that I go to in my recovery group, they're sober bartenders. Actually, there's a gal who has a podcast called The Sober Bartender who came and spoke on the podcast once, and they're therapists. Your hairdresser, my hairstylist, anyways, she's like one of my therapists. My bartender, my
Yeah, we're all therapists.
yeah.
Like, we're all,
But it's those
we don't all hear
conversations
the
that we
same
work
things either.
through. Yeah.
It's you could be telling the hairdresser or the nail salon person that's something, it's something completely different, like different topics from what you're going to tell your bartender, or like it just is what it is. I don't know.
I always found it really fascinating that what you and I were often always talking about was this concept of synchronicities, this concept of like visions, and then kind of what we were feeling after coming out of the pandemic about where the world was going.
Hmm.
And then we had that opportunity to talk about like conspiracy theories and
I
I
love
I
it.
began to get into these safe spaces with people where like I could talk to you and Danny over at Bolino's about all kinds of crazy things that I couldn't talk to anybody else about. And that was one of the things that I really loved about having these conversations. And you had mentioned your friend who is a massage therapist had given you all the indicators that you actually knew the accident was happening before it actually happened.
Yeah, yeah, very it was surreal. It was weird realizing that, like, there were some signs
Mhm.
before, like, leading up to that.
You said you had a dream that like I mean that's curious to me.
So okay, yeah, I did have a dream, and it must have been like 2 or 3 weeks before that accident actually happened. But before that, like a month before that, I went for a session. And so yeah, this is a good friend of mine, Rhonda Lynn. She works out in Flower Bluff,
I know
somewhere
Rhonda
home.
Lynn.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does the
Yes.
hot tents. What do you call
Mm-hmm.
them?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
sweats. Yeah.
Yeah. Sweat Lodge.
Yes. Yeah.
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 I went out there one time for her. I'm gonna go out
She's
again soon.
such a beautiful person. And
Yeah.
she's, yeah, no, I've known her for, I forget how long now. It's more than a handful of years.
It makes sense to me then that she's one of the people that has helped. Yeah.
Yeah, and she stopped in the middle. Like, I don't go for. She does like Reiki and she does other
Yeah.
things too, but I've never gone actually for like one of those sessions.
Uh-huh.
But I went one time and she stopped almost in the middle of it. She was working on my lower body and she just flat out was like, "I'm seeing fire,
Uh,
flames. I'm seeing red."
uh-huh.
And she started, she's thinking like, normally it means this and this and that. Are you gonna move or this and
Mhm.
that? And she was asking me questions, and I'm like, huh. I'm just laying there. She's giving me a massage or whatever, and I'm like, wow, I don't know any. And like, I don't know. Nothing's going on in my life at all.
Yeah.
Like so, and she's like, well, okay, well, all right, well. Then she just,
Let it go.
carries on, and yeah, and then the next session that I go is probably like a month later. Yeah, and we ended up talking in the middle of that.
Uh-huh.
I'm telling her, yeah, I had this crazy dream, and in the dream, I was in my car and I was headed toward the highway, which is at the time where I was living at is like 2 or 3 blocks away from my place,
Mhm.
short drive,
Mhm.
and I'm driving straight to it, and my car stalls out and completely just breaks down right next to the highway,
Mhm.
completely broken down. And that was like the whole like
Thing with the
focus of my dream was like, yeah,
yeah.
just it all centered around my car,
Uh-huh.
just crapping out, and I was stuck there, and I needed somebody to help me get back home or something. Like, and it was so strange
Uh-huh.
because I didn't realize it, but she remembered
Uh-huh.
because I after my accident happened, after I went through recovery, it was like 3 or 4 weeks, right? And I finally got to a point where I was like, hey, I might be able to like start going for light workouts and all these other things. And I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna call up Rhonda Lynn too and go for a session.
Mhm.
Like I'm pretty sure my body's banged up or whatever. And
Mhm.
in the middle of that comes up, and she's like, I just want you to know, like, either your spirit knew that was gonna
Uh-huh.
happen, or somebody was looking out for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's the kind of stuff that I think is really fascinating. It gets me, I can go on like 800 rabbit
oh yeah,
trails of like all of
same.
that kind of stuff that has happened to me over the years. And it's happening more and more. And it's a little bit like I was in the grocery store the other day. It's been, like I said, with the, eating single, just facing single
Yeah.
because I never expected to be single again in my life.
Hmm.
And facing single, it's been really hard on me. It's not, it's been very painful, very, very painful. And I was in the grocery store the other day and I, when I go to the grocery store, I try so hard not to judge,
Hmm.
but I'm very my food, whatever. But I also have such a connection to the idea that most of the food we're eating is making us all in pain, right?
Yeah.
And so in there in the grocery store, and I just had this moment where my brain flashed and said, everyone here is in pain. And of course, my initial thought is like, well, it's because we're all eating food that makes us painful. But then I thought, you're eating food to not be in pain, and you're in pain, okay? Because I'm
Hmm.
dealing with emotional pain, right? And it gave me the understanding that my empathic, my highly sensitive nature, the traumas and things that I've been through, the things that I've learned from those things makes me realize that I have this ability to actually feel what everyone else is feeling.
Right.
And so to have gone through these traumatic situations and then to go into places where there's a lot of people where you can actually feel what other people are feeling,
Hmm.
it's very like we need each other to talk about these things so
Yeah.
that we can calm each other down and just be like, you're it
Like,
just
hey, I feel it too.
it's everything's okay.
And yeah, it's a blessing. It's not a curse. Like,
Yes.
we can help others. Like, we can
Yeah.
use this to our advantage. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
and it's not that it like makes it, oh, everybody else is in pain, so if everybody else is in pain, I'm fine. It's more so like, oh, you don't have to take like you can feel all this pain, but you don't have to own all this pain. Like,
Right.
that's a big deal, and that's been really helpful for me and made it a lot easier for me, for sure. Well, now everybody is going to want to know where they can find you at so that they can come sit down and have a bar therapy session and talk about empathy and conspiracy theories and all the things that you're going to have a whole
Sports and
crowd. Yeah, sports. Okay, good.
everything.
Because, yeah, I don't want to talk about
Everything.
sports. So
Music. You can talk to me like for hours about that.
you
Like
have a
it's
band, right? Yeah.
yeah,
What,
yeah.
tell
We
us
actually
about
I
your
just
band.
came from over there. We were rehearsing earlier. We have a well, I shouldn't plug it yet, but we have a show coming up very very soon. Within like it's like weeks away maybe. We'll be
Nice.
announcing soon. Yeah, but
What instrument do you play?
I'm a frontman actually. I sing.
You sing.
I mean, I play a few other.
Yeah.
Play piano and guitar at home, but
Yeah.
for this band, yeah, that's not needed. No.
And what's the name of the band?
Zombie King.
Zombie King. What kind of music do y'all play?
You would think. I mean, you would think from the name, it's like very brutal stuff, but no, it's
Who knows these
we're
days with zombies?
hard rock, heavy metal. You know,
Uh-huh.
just yeah.
Cool. Well, I would love to come out and see you play sometime. And so I'll keep an eye out for it. I follow you on Instagram.
Oh
You're
yeah, yeah.
Juan Manuel on Instagram.
One more drink.
Juan More Drink. Okay.
Yeah,
So we can find him on Instagram there and you can just become friendly with him there. And then where else can we find you? The Annex Bar.
the annex. Yeah, so I'm over
Mhm.
on a chaparral and going on 9 weeks. I think the guys are gonna probably Linda and Caitlin and everybody are gonna laugh. This guy's gonna because I've been keeping track of like how long we've been open. And I'm just
Uh-huh.
like guests are asking all this. Oh, how long have you been here? It never fails. Like every week we hear it. How well, and it's been like every week is oh, it was 3 weeks. Oh, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like a freaking I mean that's the dad in me, right? Like oh yeah, she's 16 months old and blah 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 or
Yeah.
whatever.
We're
Yeah,
9
but
weeks old.
yeah,
Nice.
no, but
I
it's
haven't
fun there. I love
come,
it
but
so
I
far.
will. Been able to connect with you and now have these connections. That's what I love. I like the network, like you said, like getting to know all the people
It's
and
beautiful.
yeah.
It's and it like working in this industry, especially like for myself, jumping from place to place and seeing people follow you to the next place. But
Mhm.
at that next place, meeting all of those new people
Mhm.
and creating those relationships with them and bonding and then I mean God forbid you're not gonna last there forever, and then you end up at some other random place. Like
Right.
I mean, I've been around. It's not
I've been
never been
around.
the intention, but like not like that. Well,
Yeah.
that's what she said, right? But anyways, had to throw that in there. No, yeah, and seeing those people, those new connections that you've made, those new
Uh-huh.
relationships, those people following you to the next spot, and I've already seen that here playing out. It's just it's beautiful to see it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't take that for granted.
I love it. I look forward to seeing you out and making myself feel brave enough to go and be a single woman at a
Oh, you gotta own it.
bar.
You gotta own it.
I
You're
know.
doing it
At
all
what
wrong.
point that's what I thank you. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you for you said a while ago, just do it. Just get out there. And I'm like, okay. Literally. I went to Goldfish one afternoon on a Wednesday and had my Topo Chico because I still wasn't drinking yet and saw like everybody and oh, where's Joe? And oh,
Oh
how's it
man.
going? And I'm just like, so
Now you know how the bartenders feel.
yes,
it's like when we
exactly.
go out, it's like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh, yeah.
yeah.
It's hilarious.
Okay, so we do this thing at the very end of every podcast, and it's
Cool.
because you got to come up with something to talk about at the dinner
All
table,
right. Nice.
as if we didn't already. And so I just call it random questions now, but we're still pulling from a box called Table Topics. And I pulled out 5 questions here that are all will all work. So I'm just going to let you draw one of them, and then this is completely random to me and you. Do you want to read it to me, or do you want me to read it to you?
Oh, can I okay, you read it to me.
Okay, I will. If you do something good because you think you will be rewarded, does it count as something good?
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, it's still good.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Good
always
is
think
good.
about this.
It's a black and white question right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very well
Yeah.
said. I
Motives
think
and
about
intentions
this.
are separate from that act.
Right.
And I guess in this,
Don't you do everything for like to me it's like I mean everything is for I'm going to give you what I want to receive. Like give as I want to receive is kind of, how it
I
all seems
think
to
that's
work.
one of the like
Tenets of the Bible, like Jesus taught us that, I think.
yeah, the golden rule.
Yeah.
But I think also getting past that, or actually um Jesus flipped that on its head and said, "Oh, you're doing something to receive," when he wasn't,
Right.
right? When we get past that barrier and like we start doing things out of complete like selflessness, that's when life really starts, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think for me, I think that for
It's
me, I
hard.
think it's like thinking about the idea that there is nothing that I'm doing that's good in the world for the world that isn't benefiting me. Like if I do something good for the world, it benefits me. I guess that's what I was trying to say about like that's what Jesus taught us. Like if you're doing good, even if you're not you and what you're saying is it get past the point of oh, I'm doing something good for
Or
me.
expecting it.
Right.
Right.
It's really
A
just
lot of, I think that's what the society nowadays is. It's kind of built on that. Like
mhm.
the expectations are always there. You want something in return, almost
Right.
always. I think it's the big reason why like marriages fail. I think it's a big reason why things are going wrong in the homes,
Mhm.
in, I mean, government, in every aspect of society, and somehow we fell off of that. Uh,
I just always think about because I'm a very servant oriented, like community servant oriented person, but everything that I do that is for the community that's good
mhm.
is also good for me, right? And so to me, good is good, like you said.
Right.
If you do good, you receive good. And I don't know, I think that that makes sense to me. It's easy. And the service is what is good for me. Like it feels good to me to receive people here on the farm on Mondays that come and bring their kids and want to just hang out. Like
Yeah.
that's the gift you're bringing me. You coming here to record a podcast with me and having dinner with me is as much of a gift to me as it is to you coming and having dinner and like
Right.
that that's what I'm looking for in the world. And I think that that's what Christ consciousness is all about. That's what we were trying to get on board with
Yeah,
is
what you get in return isn't always going to be concrete or like something that you can hold in your hands. Like it's
mhm.
feelings. Even feeling is something that you get given back to you.
Unquantifiable data.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you coming out here and taking the time to come out to the farm.
Yeah, loved it. Had a great time.
Dinner was excellent. Thank you guys all so much for being here at the dinner table. It's great every week. Thank you for listening. And again, know that every week it really helps me out. If you're listening to this on YouTube, if you'll subscribe to my channel, anywhere that you can rate, review, tell a friend. And of course, if you want to throw a couple bucks at the podcast, that would really, really help me out. Just go to dinnertabletalks.com and click support podcast at the top of the webpage. And thanks again, Juan, for being here with me. I appreciate you and I appreciate all of you guys. Have a wonderful week.